And what Steve Bannon is telling us, and he was attacked in articles for saying that he has a dark apocalyptic vision of the future. Let me tell you who's got a dark apocalyptic vision of the future. These people who are meeting in a global world summit in Dubai, they envision a future where everybody is under the thumb of government. And of course, they say, well, we have to do this in order to serve you. You remember that Twilight Zone episode where the benevolent space aliens come down in the ship? And their motto is, well, we're just here to serve you. We're just here to serve you. And at the end of the episode, a guy gets in the ship and he sees that they have a cookbook to serve mankind. And let me tell you something. You are on the menu. They want to take your lives away. They want to destroy your life, make you dependent on the government. That's one of the other things he's talking about, how we all have to go on a universal basic income. And we have people in both the left and the right side. We have people like Charles Murray, as I've pointed out many times before, who led the push for welfare reform under the Reagan administration, pointing out in his book, Losing Ground, that the welfare state had destroyed people's lives. It had turned them into dependents. It had been very, very counterproductive. And yet he's now one of the people, this economist, who pointed out the problems with a welfare state. He wants to put everybody on welfare. And, of course, so does Elon Musk, because they understand that as they gradually replace you, they want you to be susceptible to the soft kill. They want you to just gradually go away so they don't have a war with you. Well, we need to wake people up, and we need to tell them that we're not going to go quietly. We are not going to turn into their servants, and they are not going to serve us in that way. But as you look at this, and as we had Jim Webb point out, they're coming after all the key people in the Trump administration. One of the others that they're coming after is Stephen Miller. There's a Breitbart article there talking about how the New York Times is trying to paint him as a far-right gadfly with little policy experience. No, actually, this is a guy who has a great deal of political experience on Capitol Hill. He began as one of the youngest press secretaries on Capitol Hill when he was 22. And then he became advisor to Senator Jeff Sessions. And in that capacity, he helped Senator Sessions become an advisor to Donald Trump. And now they have derailed TPP, as they point out in Breitbart, the wage-slashing globalist trade deal and immigration expanding legislation. That's what TPP is. He helped lead the fight against that. He helped to educate the public as well as candidate Trump and now President Trump. So one of the first things that Donald Trump did is to kill TPP. And if you want to know who's to thank for that, it's Jeff Sessions and Stephen Miller. Jeff Sessions was one of the earliest people to endorse, if not me, I think he was the first person in Washington to endorse Donald Trump. And it's the only person that he's ever endorsed for president. They say that, as they point out, he's tough and determined populist, but they portray him merely as a bomb-throwing email spammer in the article by the New York Times. So this is very important to understand how they're coming after individuals. They point out with him one more thing about him. They say, of course, he helped Senator Sessions to lead the fight against the Gang of Eight immigration bill. And, of course, he was leading that fight, and that's largely due to Stephen Miller helping him with that. Then they come after Mike Flynn, General Flynn. The latest charge against Flynn is to say that he made some phone calls and he talked to the Russian ambassador 7 weeks after the election, 3 weeks before the inauguration. They say he was talking to a Russian ambassador. This was president-elect and people that he had talking to them. Now, this was happening as Obama was continually putting out this phony narrative, escalating tensions between Russia and the United States, saying the Russians did everything. The Russians did this, the Russians did that, the Russians hacked our election, blah, 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 okay? And then throwing out some Russian diplomats for show. So it was against that backdrop. And so you have to ask, they look at it and they say, well, was Flynn trying to interfere with the Obama administration? I turn it around and I say, was Obama trying to interfere with the Trump administration? Because he was doing all of this stuff at the very last minute, putting out this phony narrative about the Russians. And so they say, well, you know, this is very serious. He might have to be punished for interfering with the Obama administration. Again, the double standard that we always see. They say that spokesman, and this is information that's being leaked out, as I mentioned in that 1-minute report that we did, we're continually seeing information being leaked out that I think is coming from certainly the State Department and insiders, but also when you look at phone conversations that are being leaked out, I think that's coming from the surveillance state. the dark surveillance state. And we've always talked about how if they can, they will blackmail politicians that they don't agree with. And if they can't find something to blackmail them on, they will try to destroy them with innuendo, try to embarrass them. And we've seen that now multiple times against President Trump. We're now seeing it being applied against Flynn. They say U.S. officials, as the Washington Post, said that they're trying to build a case against Flynn using the Logan Act, which they say stems from a 1799 statute, and even the Washington Post says, which has never been prosecuted. Nobody has ever been prosecuted under the Logan Act. Officials cited political sensitivities. They say prominent Americans in and out of government are so frequently in communication with foreign officials that singling out one individual, particularly one poised for a top White House job, would invite charges of political persecution. You bet they would. And think about this. Prominent Americans in and out of government are so frequently in communication with foreign officials. Well, when would that happen? Well, that would happen at places like Davos. That would happen at places like Bilderberg, wouldn't it? Of course, we have brought up that point going back to 2012. New American did an article talking about the Logan Act in the context of Bilderberg and saying that this is a true violation of the Logan Act. And they quoted at the time Alex Jones, who in the 2012 Bilderberg meeting that was in Chantilly, Virginia, said government officials meeting and discussing policy with private interests in secret or with representatives of other governments is a violation of the Logan Act. Alex Jones pointed that out in 2012. The New American did an article on it, talking about the fact that at Bilderberg, you have these people meeting in secret. And who are they? Media magnates, titans of industry, top bankers, influential politicians, royalty, nobility, prominent academics, military and intelligence chiefs, and many other members of the globalist elite. So, and just that year, in 2012, there are 50 Americans in attendance, all of them extraordinarily influential. For years, they pretended that this didn't happen. And then they pretended that, well, there's actually nothing really going on in Bilderberg. When we were there in Copenhagen, we got footage. Actually, my wife got the footage of Ed Ball trying to come in through a side entrance, and he didn't have his pass with him. And he was all flustered. You should know who I am. I'm the shadow chancellor of the exchequer in Britain, and you should let me in. And, you know, what are you shaking me down for ID and everything? Well, he kept going through stuff, and so then he starts going through. He had a roll-on, carry-on luggage that was on wheels with him. And he takes that carry-on flight bag, and he starts to look through it, and he opens it up thinking, well, maybe I put it in here. And as he did, the thing opened up and spilled out, and you could see that in that carry-on flight bag that he was taking into the hotel where they were having the meeting, there wasn't any clothes, there wasn't any toothpaste, none of our InfoWars toothpaste, Super Blue or anything. No, didn't have any of that. That entire suitcase was filled with paperwork. And they just want to say, this is just an informal meeting where we're getting to know people who are movers and shakers. There's no real business being conducted here in secret between people who are trying to push back against any particular policy or trying to cut deals with themselves for their companies, or nothing like that is really going on. There's nothing going on here. Well, she got that picture of him as all of that stuff, literally, as he spilled the beans, and the suitcase full of paperwork. Because, of course, he's not going to put it on something that's electronic because he knows they can hack it. There we go. There's a picture. Great job, guys. I tell you, we got a great crew here. They're right on top of this. There he is. The whole thing spilled out. He's on the ground going through his stuff. And, you know, interestingly enough, shortly after that, they had an election in Britain, and he was the highest-ranking official who lost. This is a guy who said he was on the side of labor, and there he is with stacks of paper working with these crony capitalists at Bilderberg for globalism against the individuals there. So, you know, we got that picture of Ed, and we know that that's what's going on. And so what does the Logan Act say? It says, well, in the United States, any citizen of the United States without authority of the U.S. government, directly or indirectly, commences or carries on any correspondence or intercourse with any foreign government or any officer or any agent thereof. Oh, they were filled with people like that in Bilderberg, with the intent to influence the measures or conduct of any foreign government or officer or agent, whatever, in regard to any disputes or controversies. Do you think that those people there get together and try to subvert our laws, to subvert our Constitution, to try to establish global structures? Of course they do. They want to get rid of the United States government. They want to get rid of the sovereign governments of Europe. It was at Bilderberg that they came up with a plan for European integration, that they said we're going to have a common currency called the euro back in 1955. So, of course, they do that kind of stuff. Absolutely, they do that kind of thing. But they've never prosecuted anybody under the Logan Act. And so they say, yeah, it'd be kind of hard to get Flynn, but we'll try. We'll try to get Flynn. We'll try to, even though we've never prosecuted anybody since 1799 under this law. Of course, remember, there were other infrequently used laws that the left used. Obama, in the 1917 Espionage Act, he sent more journalists and whistleblowers to jail using that obscure act that was done 100 years ago. He sent more people, prosecuted more people under that law than all the other presidents in the 100 years before him combined. And then, of course, he took the Antiquities Act, and he used that to take tens of millions of acres of land throughout the country, saying, well, we're going to now declare that to be a national monument. We're going to take half a state and declare that it's some kind of a monument. No, they abuse laws like that. That's precisely what they do. So we have to understand that this is where they're going, and we have to understand that they're focused on people who are real movers and shakers. Now, there's one other person that they're focused on, that they're really upset about, and that's Betsy DeVos, the education pick, Donald Trump. And I'm still not really sure about Betsy DeVos. I know why they're upset again with her. They're upset about the charter school issue. And I have my concerns with charter schools as well. I was always for anything that I thought would give people more choice. But if you look at it closely, you can see that it really does kind of enable crony capitalism. We've seen that happen, and there's an excellent documentary, and I've talked to the filmmaker Mark Hall multiple times here. It's called Killing Ed. And they take a look at the very worst case, even worse than crony capitalism, and that is the Fatah Gulen schools that are operating in the United States and getting $500 million of government money. So we have to be concerned about how charter schools are run. And understand that when we look at education, when we look at the Department of Education and the government's role in education, you always have a situation between the Republicans and the conservatives and the Democrats and liberals on the other hand. The Democrats think that government can do no wrong, that corporations can do no right. And many libertarians think just the opposite. They think that government can do nothing wrong and that government can do nothing right and that corporations can do nothing wrong. And that gets us into this situation of charter schools. The reality is, I think we need to get government out of education, especially at the federal level. There's absolutely no reason for us to have government involved at the federal level. And so there were two issues with Betsy DeVos. The Democrats hate her because of the charter school issue. But people on the right were very concerned about whether or not she supported Common Core. And as Breitbart points out, she announced as she was nominated that she absolutely did not support Common Core. But the issue was that she had funded and supported organizations that were avid proponents of Common Core. So what Breitbart is saying, okay, now that you're sworn in, you can do something to show us, and here's 6 things that you can do to tell us that you don't support Common Core. Number 1, you can assure states that they can repeal Common Core without being penalized by the federal government. So it'd be the first thing. Say, we're not going to penalize you if you push against this. Number 2, you could issue guidance that says that every Student Succeeds Act provision that gives educational secretary power over state curricula is not enforceable because we have a constitution that pushes back against that. You could also say we want to have local control of education before we address the school choice issue. We need to understand that virtually the president, virtually everybody in Congress right now, I was educated without a Department of Education at the federal level. Think about that. Most people in this country over a certain age were educated without a Department of Education. As a matter of fact, the founders were educated without any government schools. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight. I want to get back to this article on Breitbart by Dr. Susan Berry, talking about 6 things that Betsy DeVos can do to show us that she is not a supporter of Common Core, that she is not a supporter of big government, of centralized control over education. It's very important that that be rolled back. We're talking about having massive strategic change. Take a look at these people, these kids in the street who've been totally brainwashed, kept captive by this educational system. I call them the progressive trogs, the prog trogs. They're troglodytes, cave dwellers. Go back to the analogy, Plato's analogy of the cave, where he imagined a situation like we would have with a projector today, where hey, imagine we got a fire and we got little shadow puppets that are being made, and you got these people that are chained into a cave, and all they know is the propaganda that they've received all their life. And then you turn them out in the streets to go riot and block the roads. That's our educational system in a nutshell, these prog trogs. So we need to talk about how dangerous education is, how they have used it as a tool for social revolution. And, of course, that's what these guys did with the Weather Underground when they stopped bombing buildings and went into education. They understand how powerful that is. Going back to this article about Betsy DeVos and the problems that we have in education. And, folks, we're going to lose the culture war. We're going to lose our country if we allow the liberals to control education and if we have central control of education out of Washington. That was something that was put in by Jimmy Carter. As I pointed out, there's a lot of people who are in control of the government right now. The way you need to talk to them is say, hey, you managed to get an education without having a Department of Education. Maybe the rest of us could do that as well. But here are the key things. And this is in this article, they say, tell the states that they can repeal Common Core without a penalty from the federal government. And they point out, she says, President Trump and DeVos should not and cannot tell the states to repeal Common Core. They shouldn't be the ones to decide. So we don't want to see them dictating a different agenda to the states. We want to just get them out and understand, too, that they can make common cause with many of the teachers who are so upset about the charter school issue on Common Core. You could make common cause with them because it's not just parents who hate Common Core. It's the teachers who hate it. And then tell them that the educational secretary is not going to enforce, doesn't have the power to enforce dictates on your curriculum. Put forward a plan to eliminate the Department of Education. If you're serious about the Constitution, if you really want to do this, this has already been introduced by a representative from Kentucky. Representative Thomas Massey put out a bill to eliminate the Department of Education. He said neither Congress nor the president, through his appointees, has the constitutional authority to dictate how and what our children must learn. Absolutely. Amen to that. Join us tonight for the InfoWars Nightly News.
This has been adopted as of 2017 by the Department of Defense. All four branches of the military, Combat One. And guess who in the spring of 2017 has the exclusive right to sell this to everybody else but the military? Infowars.com. I want to commend Q and Patrick and the rest of our team. I want to commend Combat One for getting the big Pentagon deal. And I want to thank them for supporting us because they know we support America. We are the exclusive source of Combat One skin and muscle optimization, field foam, field spray, skin and muscle optimization, and broad spectrum hygiene tactical bath. Contains 8 pre-moistened cloths. Ladies and gentlemen, these are incredibly affordable, and they have patented proprietary systems. That's why it's been adopted by the Pentagon, by the Defense Department, system-wide. I'm gonna go over some of the numbers, some of the proven statistics and the claims that Combat One can make right now. Never before has the public been able to access this new Combat One military-grade hygiene technology used by special operations to maintain hygiene during survival situations. Studied for safety and effectiveness by St. John's Medical Research Institute, St. Jude's, and the American Journal of Infection Control. The technology behind Combat One wipes kills bad bacteria while leaving beneficial skin bacteria unharmed. That's the key buffer. The toxic wipes, the sanitizers kill everything, including your immune system. They lower your fertility. It's all admitted. Combat One is able to do this naturally by only targeting the bad stuff. And again, it's all patented. It's super secret. 12 years, Special Forces testing it. This is something every info warrior needs to order, needs to have in their home, needs to use in their daily lives, whether it's cleaning your guns or your own skin or when you're out camping. This is the game changer. The entire family of Combat One is available exclusively at InfoWarsStore.com.
Just coming back from the river where I was using one of our water filtration straws, a certain device we sell here at InfoWarsStore.com, and I had smacked my knuckle pretty hard the other day with my knife, after cleaning one of the animals. So I'm going to use some Combat One foam, show you guys that we actually use it, how well it works. This wound's been open for about 5 days now. I just dipped it in and out of the river, so just to better safe than sorry. Once I let that soak in, I'll wrap it up, field dress, and nice and clean again.
And it certainly is coming to the rescue with Combat One, born in America, made in America, and now distributed by InfoWars to America.